I am Kai. I'm the wife of Lee and the mother of Eli and Kira. We are nearly 150 blogs into this blog writing, and this will be my first one. I have not written a blog because 1, I feel like I have nothing to say, and 2, the thought of reading my blog out loud terrifies me. Until recently, I would have told you that I don't suffer from anxiety. However, I'm coming to the realization that I have anxiety when it comes to a situation that does not have a right or wrong answer, and when I have to talk about myself. Sometimes I just start talking and I begin to feel the tears coming up. Then other times I can't say anything because my heart is pounding, my body feels like it's shaking, and the tears begin to pour out. Just writing this blog makes tears come, and then the thought of reading it out loud is even worse. I have struggled with my weight all of my life. I have gained and lost weight multiple times. I was at my goal weight and doing great, then COVID hit. During the changes COVID brought on, I returned to my old habits and put all the weight back on that I had worked so hard the previous 2 years to lose. I thought that I had finally faced my demons and was done with the roller coaster, but I wasn't. In the last 3 years, I have had a knee injury and been dealing with painful plantar fasciitis. While trying to exercise and get back in shape, during this time, I have been struggling with being the weakest link. I put everything I have into the workouts, and I'm still the last to finish and not losing any weight. Having the injury and continued pain from plantar fasciitis has set me back even further. However, I am learning during this process a few things. 1, I cannot compare myself to others, as we are each unique and made by God with our own strengths and weaknesses. God knew this would happen and knew that this was a process I needed to go through. I cannot think that I am behind, but that I am where I'm at and that I just have to work hard to continue to improve and give my best each and every day. 2, I cannot quit just because it has gotten harder. There are things that I can work on even if I can't use my knee or foot like I was. And 3rd, I know that what I do and say influences those around me, especially my kids. Therefore, I have to keep going to show them that obstacles won't stop us, but that they just make us stronger in the end. I know that my weight is rooted somewhere in my lack of self-esteem and never feeling accepted. So this was a way I could try to control something. I have always felt that I was not good enough. Having a sister, Katie, only 13 months older, we competed in everything, consciously and subconsciously. I usually came in behind her. I also was expected to be the son my dad wanted. In addition, my food intake was always highly controlled, and that is why when I went off to college, I hit one of the highest weights I've ever been. I was always struggling to find my place in my family and then also among peers. I never felt I was good enough, and I could never be as good as Katie. So I took on the role as the more rebellious black sheep of the family. This has led to these struggles that I have now of feeling unworthy and never good enough. However, I am working to remind myself that God says in Psalms 139, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. If I really slow down and evaluate this scripture, I realize that God is speaking directly to me and saying that I, Kai, am fearfully and wonderfully made. No matter what the world or people think of me, God created me and He has a plan for me. Therefore, I need to trust in Him and lean on Him. Sometimes it is really hard to hold on to this truth and not spiral back into myself. Some days I do okay, and then some days it is like I run into a brick wall and all these emotions try to drown me. I know this is Satan trying to creep into my thoughts to pull me away from God and into my thoughts of not being good enough. When this happens, I must rebuke Satan by quoting a scripture. Psalms 56:4 says, In God I will praise His word, in God I have put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do unto me. Saying and meditating on this scripture brings me peace and realigns me with God. Sometimes I have to say it over and over. This requires faith and trust in God. If you find yourself in a similar situation, find you a scripture to meditate on until you have peace.
Well, Kai, after waiting so long to write a blog, you wrote an excellent blog, okay? You wrote really, really a good one. And, I want to encourage you to keep writing for these reasons. Number one, you are not alone. You're not isolated. I'm sure of the people that listen to this blog, probably a good 25% can identify with you spot on. So, but there's no one out there writing like that. So it's important for you to do this. And I'll tell you why I think it is. I think it is because sometimes things that happen to us are meant for a reason. Now, this may be esoteric, I don't know, stoic, whatever. Sometimes I think the things that happen in our life, God intends for us to happen so that we can be molded into such people as to know how to empathize with other people. And that even though that sounds cruel and it's not something we chose, just like when Jesus died on the cross, he wasn't dying for himself. And you can say, wow, that's terrible that he would have to die for other people. No, we benefit from it. I'm glad he did. And I'm not glad he suffered, but I'm glad he did. In the same way, the things that you suffered, the things that you are suffering, things you are going through, I think the ability to speak out to the people who don't have a voice, who won't do it, who are too much in the closet to be afraid of everything they do, I think you've gotta, you live it. Who knows it better? As they say, because I was a therapist, and some people say, well, I know how you feel. And I'm like, so you've ever experienced what I felt? No. Then you don't know how I feel. You don't know the nuances. And I think back in my own life, my own childhood under my stepfather, who was a very cruel person, cruel, punishing, physically cruel person. And I think, wow, man, why did I have to be the one? Why couldn't I be the one to be a leave it to beaver guy? I'd be okay. But it wasn't. It was a harsh environment I grew up in, terrible, deforming in so many ways. But I realized that whenever I saw the gift that God gave me, which was to be a therapist, a minister, a counselor, that I realized he'd been training me to do this. I think you too, Kai, if you really look at it, okay? Because what you experience, you don't experience alone. And you know how to talk to people who do experience it, okay? And you look at everything there is. I mean, you have a family that were more bent on what they look like than anything else, on everybody's expectation of them, and they had to live prim and proper and all that kind of stuff. Grandmother, father, grandpa, and it just added to everything, and made you feel like, well, you definitely were the black sheep of the family. That's funny you say that, because I was the black sheep of my family. I was that other word we can't use anymore. But I was that. And I think, it took a lot of courage for you to do it. You still live with that anxiety of that. And we see that as it comes up. And it's not just you. You've overcome so much to come to this point that I really, really, really think that you have a ministry in there. You have something to talk about. You're a master's in social work. Mm-hmm. You do all this stuff. You've accomplished all this stuff. You've overcome all this stuff. So you basically know what's going on out there and how people are hurting. Mm-hmm. And I think when you can say, okay, I cry because I get nervous. Okay, when you realize that you're not alone. Growing up in your family, you're a black sheep. Mm-hmm. But then when you realize, The world is full of black sheeps. So you're not alone. And your courage to do that is phenomenal. Okay? All right? Now, after having written it, what do you feel like?
I don't know. I guess in some ways it's a relief. In some ways it's still scary.
Well, yeah, because we started tackling the problem doesn't mean it all goes away. In fact, it is the fact that you overcome it is the victory. Not that you don't have it. Not that you're not afraid of it. Fear is an illusion. But man, it is a big, bad illusion that makes you think, oh my God, I'm going to be a failure and I'm going to be embarrassed and everybody's going to look at me and go, oh my God. And it's a lying illusion. It's not true. Satan's a liar and the father of it.
Yeah.
So we know that. But still, it's that, oh no, I'm waiting for it to happen. And when you say, you know what, you have already experienced from people, but mostly from yourself, all the criticism I think the world has to offer. I don't think the world can be more critical of you than you are of yourself.
No.
So when you realize, hey, I've done it, they say, well, how painful would it be? Well, I've already been there and done that. I got the award. And I know it is, but your ability to push through that is the courage. That's what overcomes is. We have something to overcome. That's why we're overcomers. Okay? And I think you have done, well, let's put it this way. Very, very few people like that, like you in your particular situation, have come as far as you have. Now, didn't mean we're at the end of the road.
No.
Okay? And that doesn't mean that we can't fight it. When you find and really look at not only the fact of you're fearfully and wonderfully made, okay? Now, when you realize that, but then you begin to realize that I've been fighting against a lot of lies and untruths, but they were so cemented. Everybody around you, everybody around you kept saying that. So why wouldn't you feel that way? I recommend you write a whole treatise sometimes on the one story that I think is fairy tale, I guess they call it. I don't know. Yeah, it's got to be. That I delight in. The Ugly Duckling. That is everybody's story who feels they're a black sheep is the Ugly Duckling. Nothing is more poignant than the Ugly Duckling. I remember when I was practicing therapy on a regular basis, I would, every time I found the little golden book on the Ugly Duckling, I would buy them. I remember one time I came up with 20 copies because I found out that had 100, I'd buy them. There were so many people that said, read this book, it's your life. The Ugly Duckling. Only to find out it wasn't a duck.
Yeah.
So, reread The Ugly Duckling all the time. Reread it to yourself and go, except don't call it The Ugly Duckling, go at Kai the Swan. This is the Kai Swan story. And read it and believe it, because it is Psalms 139. Mm-hmm. So, are you going to write more? Are you going to write another blog? Oh, you got the material. You've got it right there. And I don't mean when I say that because I need a quota so you can be judged by it. I mean, it's phenomenal that you just wrote it. So I would really encourage you to write whatever's in your heart. You've already lived it, so now you can explain it to everybody else. Okay? Good. Good. Thanks, Kai. I didn't let you talk much. You got any more to say?
No.
Okay. All right. Was that terribly hard?
No.
No. Yes, it was hard before you got here, but
Yes.
it wasn't hard when you got here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Thanks, Kai. Love you and appreciate you.
Thanks.
y'all. Thanks for joining us for Around the Supper Table. At Sanctuary Family Farms, we want to be real. Whether that's through our blogs, daily verses, or even Nana's recipes, we want to share the messages that God has laid on each of our hearts. If you liked what you heard today or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Sanctuary Family Farms or our website at www.sanctuaryfamilyfarms.com, where we share our recipes and blogs and sell farm fresh beef and pork. We can't wait for you to join us again for next week's episode.